I know there was a lot of one thing I'm going to touch on real quick. I know there was a lot of discussion about the Sunday night football game, Washington and Philly, and I know there was a lot of frustration about the game, and by me as well. I was vocal about it, and I'm going to say first and foremost, I was not frustrated for the Giants. I was not frustrated that Philly screwed the Giants at all. I didn't care about that. I didn't give two craps about it. My frustration was for the players, that you could visibly see it on the sideline and on the field, not knowing what Doug Peterson's plan was. That's where my frustrations were. That and the fact that that game got flexed into a Sunday night primetime game, and it was embarrassing. It was an embarrassing game to watch. And like I said, I felt bad for guys like Jason Kelsey, who are established veterans, very well respected in the NFL community, and who have busted their asses for an NFL team for a decade plus to get shit on the way he did, ending that potentially his last game as a professional athlete. That was my frustrations with it. I know a lot of people were thinking that I had, that I was mad over the Giants and, well, the Giants should have won more games. Absolutely, 100% agree with that. Don't put yourself in that position. If you have to rely on another team to win a game so that you can make the playoffs, you did not do your job. 100% on board with that. My frustration, like I said, was nothing to do with the Giants at all. Had nothing to do with the playoffs at all. It was the fact that there was 4 other good games that could have gotten flexed into that position, into prime time, and we got shit on by Doug Peterson. And his players got shit on. And the fact that a number of them were frustrated even the next day talking about it to the media tells me right there that he did not talk to his players about the game plan, and he just lost his locker room. Plain and simple. That locker room will not follow him. And it's sad to see. Some of the decisions that he made the entire season were questionable. But again, my viewpoint of it was that he put an embarrassing product on the field in a game that was flexed to primetime, and then he shit on his players. So that's my standpoint behind it. I understand, resting players. I get it. Carson Wentz wasn't dressed. He wanted to see what Sudfeld could do, which I don't buy that, because Sudfeld has been on the team since 2017. There's been plenty of opportunities for him to put Sudfeld on the field in meaningless games, including preseason, not this year obviously, where he could have evaluated Sudfeld. So, anyway, moving on. Like I said, a couple other games that went as expected, because as we discussed last week, there was some meaningful football that was played for a number of teams. Obviously, Giants and Cowboys, which the winner of that game could have potentially won the NFC least, but it ended up not mattering because of Philly. But either way, Giants come out with a win over the Cowboys to end the season. And now we're looking at Jason Garrett potentially getting another shot at being a head coach, as multiple teams have expressed interest in interviewing Jason Garrett, former Cowboys head coach. So Garrett, as a offensive coordinator, gets a win over his former team, and potentially is going to be the head coach of the Chargers, the Texans. Both teams have young quarterbacks. Both teams have a lot of potential. especially with the Chargers. The Chargers head coach position is a thing of beauty. If I was an NFL head coach and I was about to take on a new position, I literally would be beating down the door to coach the Chargers this year. Going forward, I should say. With the roster that they've got, with the draft picks that they've got, yeah, I'll take that. Justin Herbert as their quarterback. So I would love, if I was an NFL head coach, I would love that position. The Chargers head coach position is literally like any coach's wet dream to walk into. What other meaningful football games do we have? The Buccaneers over the Falcons. Buccaneers just needed to solidify their number 5 seed. Jets-Patriots game meant absolutely nothing other than the fact it was Cam Newton's last game as a Patriot. Vikings and Lions game meant absolutely nothing, but boy was it a slobber knocker. They just went back and forth. 37-35 final score. Steelers-Browns meant a lot for the Browns, meant absolutely nothing for the Steelers, and the Browns eked out a win by 2 points. Browns clinching their first playoff berth since 2002. Big game for them. Missing a few people on the roster due to COVID, but they came out and they beat a Mason Rudolph-led TJ Watt-less defense by 2 points. Golf clap. And then they earned a trip to the playoffs where they get to turn right around and face a fully loaded Steelers roster in the first week of the playoffs. Not really sure that was the gift that they wanted, but that's what they're getting. Ravens won their way into the playoffs, beating the Bengals. No surprise there. I mean, let's face it. 11-5 finishing out the season, and they absolutely steamrolled the Bengals. And I will say this. The Ravens look like a very scary team coming into the playoffs. They're rolling, and it's definitely something to definitely something that a lot of teams do not want to play them early on. Bills-Dolphins. The Bills laid the absolute wood to the Dolphins, keeping the Dolphins out of the playoffs. Unfortunately, I kind of wanted to see what Tua could potentially do in the playoffs, or if Fitzmagic would get another shot. And the Bills just annihilated them 56-26. The Seahawks game didn't really mean much. They solidified the number 3 seed with their victory over the 49ers. Rams kept the Cardinals out of the playoffs in what was potentially a play-in game where they were going to start backup quarterbacks for both teams. And the Cardinals ended up rolling out Kyler Murray and could only put 7 points on the board. Granted, defense of the Rams is stellar, but still, the fact that you couldn't muster up enough offense to beat a backup quarterback, that does not look good for Arizona. Colts won their game against the Jacksonville. Colts locked up their playoff spot, 28-14, and Jonathan Taylor, oh my God, Jonathan Taylor just freaking rolled in that game. 253 yards or 256 yards, set his career high. I don't think he's going to be touching that mark anytime soon. Titans win the division by taking down the Texans, 41-38. Another one where Derrick Henry put up 250 yards. And which, congratulations, Derrick Henry, for surpassing the 2,000 rushing yard mark. What an accomplishment. And he is trucking. That's another team that I don't know if I would want to face in the playoffs. Now, granted, their defense is nowhere near somebody like a Baltimore Ravens defense. But their offense is clicking. That's going to be a tough one to stop. Raiders-Broncos game didn't mean anything, but the Raiders did win by 1. Packers. Packers locked up the number 1 overall in the NFC. Took down the Bears, and the Bears, luckily, squeaked into the playoffs, limped into the playoffs, actually. Packers won 35-16, and Bears get their playoff spot because the Cardinals also lost. Saints locked up the number 2 spot 33-7 over the Panthers, and we already talked about Washington beating Philly 20-14 in Philly to lock up the NFC least. So, a lot of good times. We're going to cover a little bit of NBA to start tonight. And I'm going to try to get a little bit more into the NBA as the NFL postseason winds down a little more. We'll still talk quite a bit of NFL. But I'm going to cover some stats for you guys. I know some of you guys really like stats, especially when it comes to your hobby stuff. So I'm going to cover some stats for you. The stats I'm about to cover for you guys are some of the NBA stat leaders. Every team so far has played at least 5 games. Everybody's actually played at least 6, except for Houston, because of their COVID issue they had opening night. They've only played 5. So keep that in mind, that most of the teams that are listed here have played 6 or 7 or even 8 games. Houston, anybody on the list from Houston, has only played 5 games. We're going to start off covering points per game average right now. And again, only playing 5 games so far. James Harden's leading the league right now at 33 points per game. Steph Curry, after a slow start, ended up picking it up big time, and he's now averaging 32 points a game. The last 2 nights were hot for him. He was lighting it up from three-point land, especially from deep. And then Bradley Beal from Washington, the old Bullets team, the Washington Wizards. He's averaging 30.6 points per game. That one caught me off guard. I was expecting Trae Young in that spot, or I was expecting not Durant, but Giannis. But then I look back, and Giannis had a couple of games where he was, low 20s and one even sub 20s. Bradley Beal has been electric this year. Now, with Washington, I will say that with Rui coming back into the fold, and he's looked good, I think it might take some scoring opportunities away from Beal, because I think Rui is going to end up probably in that 20-point range. He's only been hitting the teens so far in the last 2 games that he's played, but Bradley Beal, that came out of nowhere, in my book anyways. I didn't expect him to be there. I expected him mid-20s, but not 30. Going to the big men, because you gotta show some respect to the big men. Rebounds per game. Andre Drummond from Cleveland. He hasn't been tearing it up on the board or on the scoreboard, but man, 14.1 rebounds per game. He had one game just recently where he put up, I want to say it was like 20-something rebounds. He's been aggressive down there. Rudy Gobert from Utah, 13.7. Joel Embiid, 12.3. And Clint Capella from Atlanta putting up 12 boards per game. So, gotta definitely give a shout out to the big men of the NBA. And speaking of big men, in the assists column, you don't often find a center in the assists column. Nikola Jokic, 12.8 assists per game. A center in the NBA at 12.8 points per game. 12.8 assists per game. The Joker. So he's becoming a more complete player right before our eyes. He was hitting boards, he was scoring a lot of points, and all of a sudden, Jokic is now a threefold player. So that's cool. Now, granted, a lot of that's Jamal Murray has just been electric, but Jokic, 12.8. Coming in right behind him is Russell Westbrook with Washington with 11.8, and James Harden at 10.8. 2 of the biggest stat fillers you'll ever find. 2 of the biggest stat fillers you'll find, and I made a comment on Twitter about this a few days ago. Somebody put up a graphic about the most 40-point triple-doubles, most 40-point triple-double games in history. And Harden and Westbrook were on that list, among Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. And I have my opinion, and this is just my opinion. Harden especially is a very selfish player in my opinion, for just watching him play. I watch the guy light up the stat books, and he literally aims for triple doubles every game. He doesn't bother doing anything to make his team better. He's all about filling up the stat sheets. The difference is Larry Bird, LeBron even, MJ, Kobe, those guys wanted to make the people around them better. Call MJ, Kobe, LeBron ball hogs all you want. They also wanted to make their teams better. And if you guys ever watched The Last Dance, you know damn well that Michael Jordan wanted his team better around him. And I don't get that sense from a James Harden. I just don't. I get the sense I get from James Harden and watching him play and listening to him talk and watching the practices and watching everything I've ever seen about the guy is it's me, 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 me. He wants his stats. He wants an MVP. Wants another MVP. He wants accolades. He doesn't, and yes, he wants a championship, but he wants to be the reason. So, anyway, rant over. Going back to the big men, and this is a kid that I've enjoyed watching play ever since he got drafted in 2015, was Miles Turner from Indiana. 3.6 blocks per game. There's not another player in the NBA right now averaging more than 2.2. 3.6 blocks per game. This kid's going to end up with a defensive all-team defense, and potentially maybe even end up with like a defensive player of the year at this rate, because he's also putting up almost double-digit boards as well. So you get Miles Turner to be a scoring threat, and watch out. Him and Sabonis could end up being a deadly combo. Coming in behind Turner is Chris Boucher from Toronto, 2.2. Rudy Gobert from Utah, 2.2. And Christian Wood out of Houston, averaging 2 blocks per game. Excuse me. So, and again, we're still early in the season. So, like Indiana, for example, I think has only played 7 games. So, 3.6 in 7 games. The question is can he carry that? We're right now we're still at small sample size. It's fun to see the leaders right now, but small sample size. Steals per game, and I actually expect this to go up because I know a couple of guys that are that should be averaging 4 steals per game. Now, right now the leader through the 5, 6, 7, 8 games right now is Larry Nance Jr. from Cleveland, averaging 2.6. Drew Holiday from Milwaukee, 2.1. OG over there in Toronto, 2, and Kawhi from the Clippers is averaging 2 as well. Only 4 players that are even averaging 2 steals per game. And the stat we all care about, because we know dang well that this is what brings people to the stands and the highlight reels. 3-pointers made. Steph Curry leading the charge, especially after his last 2 games. 31 3-pointers made, leading the league. Paul George right behind him at 30, and C.J. McCollum for Portland sitting at 28. So those are your stat leaders in the major stat categories anyways for the NBA. So we're going to get over into some NFL stat leaders, regular season final stat leaders here in a second. Hopefully this is big enough for you guys. All right. So we are 17 weeks completed in the NFL season. The regular season is done. We are moving on into the playoffs. Wild card weekend starts in 4 days. Well, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Starts in 3.5 days. Okay? Here are some of your NFL stat leaders that you're going to see getting accolades over the next several weeks for their regular season contributions. We're going to start off with the passing leaders through the regular season. in what might be a little bit of a surprise, Deshaun Watson ended up as the passing leader with 4,823 yards. Without a premier wide receiver, a year removed from losing DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals, Deshaun Watson leads the NFL in passing yards. Was the problem Bill O'Brien? Yeah, most likely. The problem was not Deshaun Watson. That's for damn sure. Sitting at number 2 on the season, Patrick Mahomes, 4,740 yards, and old man Tom Brady coming in at 4,633 passing yards on the season. Passing touchdowns versus interceptions. Now, I didn't get into who led the league in interceptions, but here's who led the league in touchdowns and the amount of interceptions that they threw. Aaron Rodgers, best statistical quarterback of the season, and put up 48 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. That's rare to do when you surpass 40-something touchdowns. When you surpass 40 touchdowns and you only throw 5 interceptions, period, is a feat by itself. 40 touchdowns alone is a feat. Staying out of double-digit interceptions is a feat. To do both is incredible. Props to Aaron Rodgers. Coming in at number 2 on touchdown passes, tied technically, but Russell Wilson and Tom Brady. Wilson put up 13 interceptions paired with his 40 touchdowns, and Brady put up 12. So as I said, hitting 40 touchdowns is a feat by itself. Not throwing 10 interceptions is hard to do, as both Brady and Wilson found out. Longest pass, and I like this one. I really find, because this isn't always guys that are the lighting up the stat book guys. But look at this. Longest pass is Drew Lock to Jerry Jeudy. 92 yards. Drew Lock didn't set records this year, neither did Jerry Jeudy. But they got the longest pass of the season for 92 yards, followed by Derek Carr and Nelson Aguilar, another 2 guys who did not set records this year at all, 85 yards. And then Big Ben and Chase Claypool, 84 yards. So the funny thing in all of this, you have 2 rookies that were the top 3, and Nelson Aguilar in his first year with the Raiders. All 3 guys are first years on their team. 84, 85, and 92. That's impressive. And then the bad wah-wah category of the quarterbacks is sacked most. Carson Wentz. And he didn't even play the last 4 weeks. Carson Wentz sacked 50 times. He was brutalized. Now, I guarantee if you add in Jalen Hurts' numbers, I bet you he's over 60. I wouldn't doubt it if I looked it up. Jalen Hurts was sacked more than 10 times. Deshaun Watson came in at number 2 with 49, and that one hurts because Watson has been abused to start his career. Seriously, if you want to look up one of the most abused quarterbacks behind his offensive line, I know some of you guys say Russell Wilson has been, and Russell Wilson has been, not going to lie. But Watson has, over the last 5 years, has been one of the most sacked quarterbacks year in and year out. Wilson will take some early in the season, and then he'll end up kind of gimpy for a few games, and then he shakes it off, and then he goes into cook mode, and all of a sudden he's like destroying people and nobody can touch him. You know, he'll get sacked a lot early in the season, and then it wears out. This year he's just been a model of consistency. He's just been sacked a lot. But Watson, though, 49 times, and I want to say that's the second or third time he's been sacked 45 or more times in his career. That shit adds up. That does not bode well for longevity for a quarterback. And then, as I said, Russell Wilson rounding out the top 3 with 47. Moving over to our receiving leaders. No surprise. Stephon Diggs. 1,535 receiving yards. The dude goes from Minnesota to Buffalo, and he is just electric. Him and Allen just connected instantly, and it's electric in Buffalo. the Buffalo fans have a lot to be excited about. They've got a young stud quarterback. They've got a good or a good running back group, and then they've got a stud receiver. Stephon Diggs is going to be a troublemaker in the AFC East. Coming in at number 2, tight end, Travis Kelce. 1,416 yards. Travis Kelce is the best tight end in the NFL right now. I know some of you say George Kittle, Rob Gronkowski, list goes on and on. Part of being good is staying on the field. Staying out of trouble, staying healthy. Travis Kelce's done both. He doesn't make waves. He doesn't get in off-field issues. And I think he's only missed one season there was only been one season where he missed multiple games. Whereas Gronk, Kelce, or Kittle, a couple of those guys have struggled to stay on the field. Kelce's it. DeAndre Hopkins comes in at number 3, no surprise here either. 1,407 yards. And he had a couple of games where they fell off, and I don't want to put all the blame on Kyler Murray, but there was some games where he just could not get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins to save his freaking life. So, D-Hop, in his first year with Arizona, by the way, with no offseason. Keep that in mind, some of these guys who did this stuff with no offseason to prepare with their new quarterbacks. League leaders in receptions, again, no shock. Diggs, 127. Hopkins, 115. Here's a shocker. Devontae Adams, 115 receptions. Did I mention that Devontae Adams missed 2 games? I didn't. Guess what? Devontae Adams missed 2 games this year, and he still put up 115 receptions. That is insane. What I'm about to show you next is even more insane. Touchdowns. Devontae Adams, 18 touchdowns. 18 touchdowns for a guy that missed 2 games. So in 14 games, he put up 18 touchdowns. He was averaging 1.2, 1.15, whatever it turns out to be, touchdowns a game. From a fantasy aspect, you couldn't get any better at wide receiver. Put up over 1,000 yards, 115 receptions, 18 touchdowns. Beast. Coming in at number 2, Tyreek Hill, 15 touchdowns. I know a lot of people have been talking about how he's not a true number 1. He's not top 5. He's not top 10, whatever. I think he's top 10. Maybe not top 5. I don't know. It's tough to say at the moment. But 15 touchdowns. He's a number 1 wide receiver. Coming in at number 3, Adam Thielen, 14 touchdowns. Another number 1 wide receiver. A lot of people were worried with Stephon Diggs leaving Minnesota. What was that going to do to affect Adam Thielen's productivity? And it didn't. Scored 14 touchdowns. So, I think he's fine. Receptions of 20 yards or more. This one is interesting because all 3 guys in the top 3 all had 23 receptions of 20 plus yards. And only one of them was on any of the previous lists. Now, I will say Calvin Ridley was in the league lead top 5 early in the season for receptions and for yards. But he's 23 receptions of plus 20 yards. Travis Kelce, 23. Justin Jefferson, now, guarantee none of you would doubt that based on his performance this year. 23 receptions of plus 20 yards by a rookie. He's a playmaker. That's also another reason why Adam Thielen was able to do what he did the second half of the season, because Justin Jefferson came alive. That kid's a stud. Watch out for him. Rushing leaders. Here's one category where you're going to see one name clean house. And if you don't know his name by now, you need to get used to hearing it. Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry put up 2,027 yards in 2020. One of 8 running backs to do so in NFL history. And he did it in monstrous fashion to close out the season. He put up 250 rushing yards the last week of the season against Houston Texans, sorry. 250 yards to make that. Followed by Dalvin Cook, almost 600 yards behind him. 550 yards behind him. No. Sorry, 450 yards, my bad. 1557 for Cook. And then number 3 coming in, a young stud that I am really high on, Jonathan Taylor for the Indianapolis Colts. 1,169 yards. Jonathan Taylor is a monster. That's one kid that I would be worried about come playoff time when I've got to play them. If they give the rock to Jonathan Taylor 20 times in a game, he's putting up $150. He put up 253 or 256 yards this last weekend against the Jaguars. You give him the rock 20 times, he's putting up $150. No doubt. Rushing touchdowns. No shock. Derrick Henry, 17. In 2,000 yards, he better be scoring at least 15 touchdowns. You get 2,000 yards, it's going to happen. Alvin Kamara coming in at 16, and that was with him not playing in 2 or 3 games this year. Now, granted, 6 of those touchdowns also came in one game. Still not taking anything away from him. The guy's an absolute magician on the field. And then coming in, tied with Kamara, was Dalvin Cook at 16 as well. Longest run of the season. And again, I like these longest because sometimes these guys weren't necessarily big stat sheet guys, weren't the top guys, but they did some damage. Longest run of the season, Ronald Jones, 98 yards. And I do remember that because I had just dropped Ronald Jones in fantasy football, and he went off for a 98-yard touchdown the next week, and somebody picked him up right after that. Shame on me. Derrick Henry, 94-yard run. Again, Derrick Henry's in damn near every stat category that you can find in the rushing books right now. And then the third longest run of the year, Miles Sanders, Philadelphia Eagles. Not shocking. This kid's a home run hitter. He had multiple runs this year of 60 yards. That's crazy. Multiple runs of 60 yards. And our final rushing category for tonight, rushes of 20-plus yards. Anybody surprised at who's sitting at number 1? Derrick Henry. 16 rushes of 20-plus yards on the season. Leads the NFL. Nick Chubb coming in at number 2 with 12. Lamar Jackson rounding out the top 3 with 10. Lamar Jackson's the only quarterback to make the list, by the way. Not surprising. All right, we're going to get into some defense, because defense wins championships. Here's some individual defense leaders. Solo tackles. This one surprised me a little bit. Avery Williamson came over from the Jets to the Pittsburgh Steelers, was leading the league then, missed 2 games, and continued to lead the league. He didn't play for the Steelers for almost 2 full games, and yet led the league in 98 solo tackles with missing 2 games. Roquan Smith coming in at number 2, 96, and Zach Cunningham rounding out the top 3 at 93. Those guys are all over the field. That's the way they are. Middle linebackers typically going to be the leaders in tackles. Now, I like guys that fly all over the field. That's one of the reasons why I was a big Troy Polamalu fan. It's all over the place. Now I'm going to show you this next stat. Combined tackles. Compare these numbers. Avery Williamson still sitting at number 1. Combined tackles, so that means where he was assisting on a tackle. 170. So he put up 72 assists on tackles. That's a lot of frickin' tackles to be involved in. Right behind him, Zach Cunningham, who was the number 3 in solos, 164. Followed by Jalen Smith at 154, who wasn't in the top 3. So where did Roquan Smith fall off to? But guys like that, they're flying all over the field, making plays, getting involved, helping out their teammates. Sign them. Those guys, they're playmakers. Those are the guys who will be there. They'll be around the ball when the ball gets fumbled. They'll be around the ball carrier to help drag them down. They'll be the guys that'll step up on a 1-yard dive. That will be the guy that smashes the ball carrier and holds him 1 inch short. That's those guys. Sacks. No surprise here. TJ Watt. Following in his big brother's footsteps. 15 sacks. Trey Hendrickson right behind him at 13.5. Tied with Aaron Donald at 13.5. TJ this is probably one of the lowest years for totals for sacks for a single player for the leader. But still, 15 sacks. TJ Watt's Defensive Player of the Year, hands down. He's doing everything. He's just like a younger version of JJ. And if that's any indication as to how good TJ is going to be, JJ said that TJ was the more athletic of the two, that TJ was the better football player of the two. He said that when TJ was getting drafted. And J.J. Watt is a generational defensive end. Have we seen the best of T.J. Watt yet? I don't think we have. That's scary. Interceptions. Starting off, Xavier Howard, Miami Dolphins. 10 interceptions. Ball hawk. I cannot wait to see this kid continue to grow. 10 interceptions on a bad team. A mediocre team, sorry. J.C. Jackson, right behind him at 9, another ball hawk. And then the fall off to the number 3, Tyrann Mathieu is 6. That's a fall. Look at that. 10, 9, 6. And then there's a ton of guys in that 5, 4, 3 range, but only 2 guys more than 5. Or 3 guys more than 5. Craziness. All right, some offensive team stats. Now, I'm not going to get into passing yards because, quite frankly, we already showed the graphic for the quarterbacks. So there's really no sense in showing team stats for passing because most teams that are running multiple quarterbacks in a season are not going to be in team passing leaders. So, just saying. Started off with total offensive touchdowns, and this should be no shock. With how good the run game was for Green Bay and how good Aaron Rodgers played this year, 66 touchdowns. Green Bay scored 66 touchdowns as a team. Aaron Rodgers threw for 48 of them. 16 touchdowns between running the ball and just running the ball. Because I don't believe this stat takes into account defensive touchdowns and special teams, because I was in the offensive category when I was adding all these up. Number 2, Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans at 62, and given that Derrick Henry scored 18 of them, I mean, they had to come somewhere. That means Ryan Tannehill put up some hellacious numbers as well. And then coming in at number 3, Buffalo Bills. A very balanced offense. You have quarterback throwing for 30, high 30s, and then you had running game. So quite the offense there in Buffalo as well. And then the only other offense stat category we're going to talk about for team is rush. Because, as I said, we've already discussed the passing leaders individually, and that's pretty much going to be reflective on the team anyways. Rush yards. Ravens put up a whopping 3,071 team rushing yards. They had 400 alone against the Bengals this last weekend. J.K. Dobbins put up 160 yards by himself. 3,071 team rushing yards. The next closest team was the Titans, and that's 2,690 rushing yards, and Derrick Henry attributed 2,000 of them himself. So 690, well, actually about 660 rushing yards for the Titans throughout the rest of the team. Whereas the Ravens, it was split between like 4 guys. 3,000 rushing yards. And then the Browns coming in at number 3 with their two-headed monster, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, 2,374. But look at the difference. 3,000 to 26, let's just call it 2,700 for the Titans. It's still a 370-yard gap between 1 and 2. And then to go to number 3 is another 300 yards. That's crazy. That is redonkulous. All right, some team defense. This is a little bit bigger category because there's a lot in team defense. Pass yards allowed. Now, this might shock some of you guys. The Rams, for passing yards allowed, were the number 1 defense. 3,051 passing yards allowed. Might seem like a lot, especially when you look at what running back or what the offenses did. 3,000 rushing yards. But when you can hold a team to 3,000 passing yards, so basically that's like saying if the Rams played Kyler Murray, if they played 16 games against Kyler Murray would only throw 3,000 yards. Russell Wilson, 16 games, would only throw 3,000 yards. Would that be a disappointment if your quarterback only threw 3,000 yards in a season? Damn right it would be. Followed up next, right behind him, Washington. 3,068 yards. Really close between 1 and 2. And the Steelers weren't far behind either. They were only another 50 yards behind them. 31-10. There's some good pass defenses this year. You hold your opponents to 3,000 in that range, that 3,000 range passing yards. You're doing your job. Pass touchdowns allowed is the next category. Rams, still holding that number 1 spot. 17 touchdowns allowed. So now let's look at a Rams playing 16 games against Kyler Murray, or 16 games against Russell Wilson, or 16 games against Jimmy Garoppolo, or 16 games against anybody for that matter. 16 games against Tom Brady, and holding them to 3,000 passing yards and 17 touchdowns. They ain't going to win you a fantasy championship, I'll tell you that much. They ain't going to win you a Super Bowl either if you're only throwing 3,000 yards and 17 touchdowns. Washington, no shock, number 2, 21 touchdowns allowed. Miami Dolphins coming in tied with the Broncos at 21. 21 passing touchdowns allowed. That's some damn good pass defense. This is now granted, I will say that the Broncos absolutely gave up a ton on the ground. People didn't need to throw against them. Interceptions. 4 teams tied at 18. I don't think I've ever seen a season end with 4 teams tied for first place in interceptions. The Steelers, the Saints, the Patriots, and the Dolphins, 18 apiece. Them boys putting in work. And then sacks. One of the most fun categories to cover. I love sacks. I love defense. I love front 7 or front 4. Smash mouth. Get in your quarterback's face defense. Pittsburgh leading the way at 56 sacks. Rams coming in at number 2 at 53. Eagles rounding out the top 3. Surprisingly, the Eagles front 7. 49 sacks. Not bad. And the last page for our defensive team leaders. Rush yards allowed. Bucks coming in at number 1. Bucks are the number 1 run defense in the NFL. 1,289 rush yards allowed. Colts coming in at number 2, 1,448, and Rams at 1,460. Here's the funny thing. So those are the three best run defenses, yards allowed. The Bucks allowed, or excuse me, the Colts allowed more yards at the number 2 best defense than the Steelers had offense, rushing yards. That's ugly for the Steelers. It's not a good look. Not a good look at all. Oh my God. Rush touchdowns allowed. Doesn't change much. Bucks sitting at number 1. 10 rushing touchdowns allowed only. That's not bad. Saints coming in at number 2 with 11, tied with the Bears at 11. Bears defense looked really good to start the season, and then they just fell flat on their face after midseason. It was bad. They got bad, but they also got absolutely obliterated through the air. It wasn't so much a ground game pummeling that they took, but they got shit on. And our third and final team defense, yards per carry rushing. No shock. Bucks averaged only 3.6 yards per carry given up to opposing running backs. 3.6. Colts right behind them at 3.7, and the Rams right behind them at 3.8. So the Rams not only had one of the best pass defenses, the Rams had a top run defense as well, top 5. 3.8 yards per carry. Rams defense going into the playoffs is for real. That could be tough. Ooh. Okay. Whew. Anybody got any scores on the basketball games tonight? I have not looked at all for what was going on tonight. I wouldn't even begin to guess who's going to throw the most touchdowns next year, especially without knowing where people are going to be, because there's going to be a big change in the NFL this next year. We're going to see a lot of quarterbacks changing teams. We're going to see new head coaches. So I wouldn't even begin to guess that. Depending on the head coach that ends up in LA for the Chargers, Justin Herbert could throw 45 touchdowns. Justin Herbert could throw freaking 50 touchdowns. Depending on if Tom Brady and Bruce Arians work out their shit, Tom Brady could go nuclear next year and put up 50 touchdowns at 44 years old. Russell Wilson could put up 50 touchdowns. Russell Wilson could put up 12 touchdowns. I don't know. It's too tough to say, especially with all the moves in the NFL. I wouldn't want to bank on that today. That's too tough to say. I mean, Joe Burrow could come back next year, miss the first game with rehab, and still put up 40 plus touchdowns. I just wouldn't want to. I wouldn't even want to guesstimate that for next year yet. Who will score the most touchdowns in the playoffs this year? Team. Okay, I'm going to answer that in twofold. Team touchdowns. I think the per game. Let's break it down per game instead of looking at it as who's going to overall score the most. I think it's going to be between the Titans and the Packers and potentially the Ravens. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be as electric on offense in the playoffs as they were in the regular season, and part of that's because they played a lot of bad defenses in the regular season. They're about to be lined up against the Colts or the Steelers or Baltimore, who all have very good defenses, and the Baltimore team coming into the playoffs is not the same Baltimore team that Kansas City faced earlier this season. So I don't think Kansas City is going to be the electric offense week in and week out that we saw for most of the regular season. Green Bay has shown that they can shred a good defense. So we'll see per week. I think it's going to be between, if you just look at per week average, I think you're going to look at, it's going to be either between Buffalo, Tennessee, Green Bay, and Baltimore, probably. Rams suck. Jared Goff's overrated. Yeah. Where do I guess Carson Wentz goes? Oh, boy. Whew. You know, there's a lot of speculation going on with Carson Wentz right now. And I know he wants to start. There is a massive amount of contract that a team would need to absorb. And there's ways to do it. And there's ways for the Eagles to be able to handle getting rid of it. I could potentially see him going to, I said this in a couple weeks ago, I could potentially see him go to New Orleans. Drew Brees is going to retire. Him with Sean Payton could be the best thing to ever happen to his career. I know a lot of people say him and reuniting with Frank Reich and Phillip Rivers retiring could happen. I don't really see it happening. And part of that is because they just drafted Jacob Eason, and Jacob Eason is, from everything I'm hearing from within the Colts, Jacob Eason is very highly thought of for the future. So I don't know if they would bring in Carson Wentz. One name that I just heard a few people talking about was the Raiders. And at first it didn't make sense. I was a little confused by it. But then when you go back and listen to John Gruden, Gruden thinks very highly of Carson Wentz. And I could see him making a play for Carson Wentz. But then where does Derek Carr go? Where does Marcus Mariota go? So I don't think he'll be an Eagle next year. A lot of it's just going to boil down to who's willing to throw the money at the situation, because that's really what it's going to take. Somebody's going to have to pay up because of his contract size. All right, I got one more topic I'm going to go over tonight, just because we're getting into the playoffs. I'm going to make sure this is big enough for you guys to see. I gave you guys a bonus this week. Bonus coverage. Super wild card weekend, because this is the first year we've ever had 7 teams from each division make the playoffs, or from each conference make the playoffs. Starting off with our first round buys. Oops. I don't know what I just did. Crap. Okay, nothing happened on that screen. I thought something... I thought I just exited out for a second. Alright, first round buys. AFC West champion, Kansas City Chiefs, sitting at the number 1 spot overall in the AFC. First round buy. 13-3 regular season. 14-2 regular season. Sorry, my bad. AFC West champs. And their next game will be not this weekend, but the weekend following the divisional round. And they'll face the lowest remaining seed in the AFC. They could potentially play the Tennessee Titans at the number 4 seed. The number 4 seed is the highest potential seed that they will play next week. So you're looking at the 7 through the 4 hole. They could play the Colts if the Colts win. They could play the Browns if the Colts lose and the Browns win. They could play the Ravens if the Browns and the Colts lose and the Ravens win. And they could play Tennessee if the Ravens, the Browns, and the Colts all lose. So, we don't know what's going to friggin' happen. This is what I love about the playoffs. You don't know who's going to play week in and week out yet. NFC North champs, Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, 13-3 in the regular season. And again, they'll face the lowest remaining seed in the NFC. Could be the Bears. Again, for a third time. Could be the Rams. Can the Rams get by Seattle? Could be Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay Gronkaneers. Shit, they could be playing Washington. If Washington beats Tampa, Washington could be going to Lambeau. Chase Young chasing down Aaron Rodgers. Could happen. All right. We're going to cover the games real quick. Saturday games. Starting with the morning game. We've got the number 7 ranked Colts at the number 2 ranked Buffalo Bills. Old man Phillip Rivers versus the young gunslinger Josh Allen. Get ready for an electric game. The top 3 run defense versus a top 3 passing defense. Or passing offense, sorry, my bad. This is going to be a hell of a game. You have one team whose defense is blah. One team whose defense is amazing. At run defense anyways. A young running back for one. A young great wide receiver for the other. And 2 gunslinger quarterbacks. One over the hill and one brand new to the playoffs. It's going to be a hell of a game. My X factors for this game. For the Colts. Running back Jonathan Taylor. If they can get Jonathan Taylor going, they're going to win this game. Simple as that. Their defense is good enough that they can reduce the effectiveness of Buffalo's offense. The question is, can the Colts offense put up 24 or more points, because Buffalo's bound to score 21. So X factor for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor. X factor for the Bills is going to be wide receiver Cole Beasley or Isaiah McKenzie, because Beasley may not play, and Isaiah McKenzie would be stepping up into his role. If they can get their number 2 receiver to be able to take some pressure off of Stephon Diggs so that they can't double Stephon Diggs the entire game, jam him at the line with a safety over top, if they can get Beasley or McKenzie involved early enough and often enough, Buffalo's going to walk away with this game easily. The game's at 10:05 a.m. Pacific time on CBS, so check your local stations. All games this weekend are nationally televised. I've double-checked that. If I'm wrong, that's on the NFL, not me. Just saying. Afternoon game. Your number 6 Los Angeles Rams at the number 3 Seattle Seahawks. We've got the number 1 overall defense versus let Russ cook. Let Russ cook. A backup quarterback in John Wolford versus an MVP candidate for most of the year. And surging Seattle defense, who's gotten better at getting to the quarterback. And they've gotten better at reducing the big plays over the last 6 weeks. This could be a good game. John Wolford's mobile. So, be interesting. My X factors for this game, for the Rams, it's going to be Wolford or Goff, depending on who plays. If Wolford's unknown, I mean, he's got one NFL game under his belt. Without knowing much about Wolford, it's tough to game plan against him for the Seahawks. I get it. But he's going to have to be efficient. He's going to have to reduce turnovers. He's going to have to be able to stand in the pocket and take a hit and throw a strong ball and get his receivers in the game. Same thing goes for Goff. And if Goff plays, how bad is that thumb going to affect his play? They might have to put in Wolford anyways. Especially if Goff's hand gets hit. Who knows? But X factor for this game for the Rams is definitely going to be the quarterback position. And then for the Seahawks, Seattle's defense. They've got to put pressure on Wolford or Goff. They do. Seattle's defense can play tight enough that they don't have to worry about the I almost call them St. Louis, the LA defense. They don't have to worry about the LA running game as much as they have to make sure that they can reduce the amount of damage the wide receivers can do. Because I'll tell you one thing, regardless of the quarterback play with LA, they have some good wide receivers. When they get the ball in their hands, they can mess some shit up. So Seattle's defense here is the key. If they can get to the quarterback and they can put the pressure and they can force some bad throws, it's going to make the night easier, or actually the afternoon easier on the secondary, because they'll have a chance to potentially pick the pocket of the quarterback when he makes a bad play. That game is on 1:40 Pacific time, PM, which, by the way, all the times I'm mentioning are Pacific time. Make sure I cover that. 1:40 p.m. Pacific time on Fox, again, nationally televised game. And the third game for Saturday, January 9th, is the number 5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the number 4 Washington football team. This is an excellent pass defense versus the number 1 run defense. That's what it boils down to. Chase Young running off the field this last weekend yelling, "Bring on Brady." Bruce Arians had an interview yesterday where they showed him this, and his response was, "Be careful what you wish for." Washington has one of the best front four in the NFL. No question. Can Brady get enough time to stand in the pocket and dissect their secondary? They've got a good secondary. They don't have a top secondary. They have a good secondary. But that front four is scary. This could shave years off Brady's life if Chase Young starts getting to him. Chase Young's a stud. That kid is an animal. He is going to be a game wrecker for years to come. Could we see Brady take a hit that finally makes him go, "Nah, yeah, I don't know if I want to come back next year"? He has not played a Chase Young this year. He has not. X factors for this game, for the Bucs, Antonio Brown. And I say this tongue in cheek. And a lot of you guys have known me for years. I'm a big Antonio Brown fan. I was when he was a Steeler. I wanted to see him do well not as a Steeler. But then he went batshit crazy. But he's been productive since he's been back. Which is why I call him the X Factor for this game. Because if Mike Evans isn't 100% and Chris Godwin isn't 100%, Tom Brady's going to have to throw to Antonio Brown. He's going to have to get him involved early and often. And Antonio Brown can run the entire route tree. There is not a route that guy can't run. He knows them all. He is easily one of the best receivers in NFL history. Top 5, no doubt. Very few wide receivers have ever put up a stretch like he has. Now, does he still have all that left? He's shown flashes of it this year, so it's potential. He's that X factor. He can run those underneath routes, and then he can go on the fly, and he can run a deep. He can run a deep post. He can run the curl. He can run a wiggle. He can run it all and get targets and bring the ball in and make people miss and then bust it open and run 70 yards for a touchdown. There's nothing on that field he can't do. So he is the X factor for the Bucs. And the X factor for Washington is going to be their secondary, reducing plays like that. If Washington can get on top of Brady early and force quick throws, and their cornerbacks are playing up and jumping routes, they can make Tom Brady very miserable that day. So I 100% put X factor on Washington secondary. Moving on to the Sunday games. Starting off with the Baltimore Ravens and the Tennessee Titans. Number 5 Baltimore Ravens at number 4 Tennessee Titans. Oh, I didn't mention, by the way, the Washington and Buccaneers game. Sorry, Washington and Tampa Bay is at 5:15 Pacific time on Sunday on NBC, nationally televised again, of course. All right, Ravens at Bucks. This game is the morning game, so it's at 10:05 Pacific time. 12:05 for you Midwesterners, and 1:05 p.m. for East Coasters. This game's on ESPN again, nationally televised. The resurgent Ravens versus the ground and pound Tennessee Titans with the overlooked Ryan Tannehill. The Ryan Tannehill that was cast aside out of Miami and brought in as a backup quarterback behind Marcus Mariota for the Titans, and then took over Mariota's job, leading the Titans to the playoffs, leading them to the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs, leading the Titans to an AFC South Championship in his second year. Can he take down the big dogs of the AFC North? We have 3 AFC North teams in the playoffs this week. That's crazy. So, can Lamar Jackson with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, can they outrun Derrick Henry? This is going to be a damn good game. Can the Ravens secondary take one of the Titans' facets out of the game completely? Can they shut down Derrick Henry? Can they shut down Ryan Tannehill and make them one-dimensional? That's how you beat the Titans. Their defense is horrible. Well, they're not good. They're a middle-of-the-tier defense. So, again, 10:05 a.m. on Sunday. X factors for that game. Marquise Brown. Baltimore. Marquise Brown's got to have a good game. I don't believe that Baltimore is going to be able to run for 400 yards. I don't believe that they're going to be able to just run the ball and keep up with Tennessee scoring. I don't think they're going to. This game is going to end up being a high 20s, low 30s score for both teams. Hollywood has to catch the ball. He has to make plays. And he's got to get separation for Lamar Jackson. That's the X factor for Baltimore. Hollywood. X factor for the Titans, Corey Davis. Their run defense is tough. The Ravens' run defense. I don't expect Derrick Henry to go off for 200 yards. Derrick Henry's probably going to put up a $110, which is still admirable. Still a good number. That's a top defense right there. But Corey Davis is going to have to get involved. Corey Davis and this is the only game where I put wide receivers in both teams' X factors. Corey Davis has to play. Corey Davis has to have a big game. My number 2 X factor, I thought about putting Jonnu Smith in there at tight end. He could be a difference maker, but I really think it's going to boil down to Corey Davis. AJ Brown's going to get covered, but AJ Brown is going to. I mean, AJ Brown's awesome. AJ Brown is going to have to put up his normal numbers. Corey Davis is going to have to match that. Tannehill's going to have to throw the ball. Afternoon game, first one of the afternoon. The number 7 Bears at the number 2 Saints. This is probably the game that I consider to be the easiest to choose. And part of that's because of the last month and a half of Bears football that I've witnessed. Mostly by the defense. Mitch Trubisky's actually come back and played very well. Very well. Aside from this last weekend against Green Bay. He was kind of... But... oh, wow. LeBron James just hit the game winner versus the Grizzlies. Missed all the games tonight. Dang it. Back to the Chicago and Saints game. Drew Brees is going to throw all over this defense. And no offense to Chicago fans and the team, but they're outmatched. They really are. New Orleans is one of the most complete teams in the NFL right now. They really are. And as long as Drew Brees is healthy and Alvin Kamara is able to play this week, which I believe he is, Bears are going to get rolled just as bad as the Packers rolled them this last week. I really think that's going to happen. If the Bears can somehow manage to keep this game close, I don't know if Trubisky will be able to put up enough points to keep up with Drew Brees against a really good New Orleans defense. X factors for this game, for the Bears. Thought about a couple of different ones for this one, but it's going to boil down to the secondary. Bears secondary has to reduce Drew Brees' damage. They have to be able to limit Michael Thomas. They have to be able to take down Alvin Kamara because he's going to get past the first level. So the Bears secondary is got to be the X factor here. They have to step up. They really do. Saints X factor, simple. It's Alvin Kamara. There is no other X factor on that field. Alvin Kamara is the most dangerous person on that team. Whether it's catching the ball out of the backfield or just taking the handoff from Drew Brees, he can do anything you ask him to. Alvin Kamara can win that game for him. Alvin Kamara put up more points not last week, because he didn't play, but the week before with 6 touchdowns. He put up more points himself than the Bears put up the last 2 weeks combined. Not a good look. All right, and then the final game. Oh, it was Kuzma that hit the final. LeBron with the assist. Okay, Kuzma. That's one kid that I really wanted to see do well in the NBA. I liked him coming out of the draft. So, final game coming up on Sunday. The game I'm really interested in. Number 6 Browns at the number 3 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Stellars. This game is going to be nationally televised on NBC Sunday Night Football at 5:15 p.m. Pacific Time. Browns limped into the playoffs. Literally. Losing to the Jets in Week 16 and barely squeaking by a practice squad Steelers team led by Mason Rudolph, who looked decent. He looked promising. But COVID is killing them right now. Head coach Kevin Stefanski is going to miss coaching this game. A couple other people on their coaching staff are also going to miss the game because of COVID. And right now, I saw 7 players get activated, but there's like 10 more that are still inactive on COVID protocol. You could see a bare bones team especially if they have what happened to them, or excuse me, especially if what happens to them is anything like what happened to the Ravens and they can't get control of it. So this could be a one-and-done scenario for the Browns. Their first playoff appearance since 2002, led by Tim Couch. And they could be one-and-done to their division rivals. The Steelers really need to focus on their offense because they're going to have their fully capable defense. Hopefully, Robert Spillane is able to play this week, coming off an injury. But they're going to have, after this last week of resting a number of players, they're going to have a full Cam Hayward, Vince Williams, TJ Watt, Minka. Alex Highsmith's looked good. So this is going to be a hell of a game. X factors for this one, Browns. It's going to be the wide receivers. Wide receivers for the Browns. Steelers have a really good run defense, and the Browns have a really good run game. And I think they're going to it's going to be one of those unstoppable force, immovable object type of things. But their wide receivers are going to have to make plays against the Pittsburgh secondary. Case closed. Baker Mayfield's going to get a lot of pressure put on him early and often, especially missing a couple of offensive linemen. Steelers are going to target on that. So Baker's got to get the ball out. Those wide receivers have to make the catches and make the plays, get separation, be able to lose their receivers, and then make plays after the catch as well. Simple as that. There's not much else to it. Browns got to make plays in order to win this game and to have a shot at winning this game. X factor for the Steelers, James Conner. Yep, I said it. The wide receivers are going to catch the balls. They've been doing better. My X factor's got to be James Conner. And that means that Randy Fichtner is technically the X factor. Randy Fichtner has been driving me crazy. Offensive coordinator. He's got to get James Conner involved. Has to. They've got to air it out. They've got to take shots at 20-plus yards. They got to open it up. They got to drop the safeties deeper. They've got to drop the cornerbacks off the line of scrimmage. That way, those little quick screens are open, and it opens up the running game. You don't do that, you're not going to get a running game going. James Conner's got to put up 75 to 100 yards minimum. Anything else, likely not going to win that game. And again, that game's 5:15 p.m. on Sunday, January 10th on NBC. All right. Go to some comments here. Man, Baker's too busy filming commercials. I ain't going to lie there. Missing Hayden, though. Yep. Juju's got a Corvette all over the Browns. Steelers' run game sucks. It really does right now. And a lot of that boils down to ever since they let Mike Munchak go to Denver, the offensive line has not done its job blocking. It's been sad to watch. But yeah, and Randy Fichtner is just not a good offensive coordinator. His play calling lacks imagination. And he's just not good at scheming for run blocking. So Big Ben needs to pass the ball 60 times. Don't say that, Zeus. I don't want to see him throw the ball 60 times. I don't want to see him burn his arm out for potentially making a playoff run. Because if he throws the ball 60 times and they win, then he's going to have to throw the ball 60 times next week. And if they win that game, he'll hit 30. He'll hit the 30th throw in game 3, and he'll be so exhausted and his arm's going to be jello that there ain't going to be no zip left on the ball. He's going to get pick 6 after pick 6 after pick 6. In most likely playing against Kansas City. No bueno. Najee Harris to Pitt in the draft. I don't know. I don't think he'll go that late. I don't know. Maybe. Running backs don't exactly... I guess running backs haven't been going high lately. But I kind of want to see if Trey Lance is available late in the draft. I'd like to see Pittsburgh go after Trey Lance. All right. Alrighty. Actually, give me 1 second here. I'm going to change my camera around. Gonna change the old camera around because we're gonna rip some boxes. Oh boy. Just give me 1 second here, guys. Oh, I can't wait till I have my other camera. Holy crap. That was stuck. Alright, I gotta flip the camera on real quick, see what my vantage looks like. Yeah, Juju's most likely leaving. That's pretty evident. Okay, let me see what my camera is like real quick. Yeah, that's decent. Alright. So, 2 boxes tonight. We got a box of Mosaic Football Blaster Box and a mega box of 2020 Prism Football Fanatics Exclusive. You get 1 autograph per box and 3 purple pulsars in the box as well. I've had the Mosaic for a little while, Taylor. It's stuff I ordered a while ago. I haven't found retail anywhere in forever, so I just gave up. I've got some Mosaic stashed as a long-term hold, and because there's no products coming out really, and I didn't really have time to go pick up any more product, I just grabbed something I had here. Who's gonna be the number 1 in Pittsburgh if Juju's gone? That's easy. Chase Claypool. Deontay number 2, Chase Claypool is going to be number 1. Deontay 2, James Washington number 3. And that's the way it should be. Deontay Johnson should absolutely be a slot receiver. Number 2, he's Antonio Brown-esque, I would call him. He's a playmaker, but I would absolutely put Chase Claypool in at number 1. He needs to be the focal point of the passing game. Optic isn't coming out until February. It got pushed back. Optic football. And yes, that's going to be impossible to find. Okay, so we're going to start off with a blaster of Mosaic Football 2020. Retail exclusive autographs, rookie scripts autographs, and rookie script autographs. Mosaic orange fluorescent parallels are a blaster exclusive. Okay? And obviously, Genesis are one of the big ones that you chase in this as well, because Genesis are retail exclusive short prints. Alrighty. Opened up a little bit of retail Mosaic, not a whole lot. Most of my focus was I did the hobby box and the no huddles early on, and that was about all I did. And I did 1 choice. So if you haven't seen Mosaic Football, which I'm sure most of you have, I hope to get a Claypool in this break. Daniel Hunter, Derrick Henry, Antonio Gandy Golden, rookie, and an old school insert, John Elway. I could be wrong about the Genesis being a retail exclusive, but I have yet to see anybody pull a Genesis in a hobby, in a any format other than retail. We got Eli Manning, Nick Chubb, we get Christian Kirk, and oh my god, guys, we just hit an orange exclusive. Numbered out of 25, Devontae Parker. Look at that bad boy. Orange fluorescent Devontae Parker. Very cool. That's the first orange fluorescent I've pulled. Very nice. Devontae Parker. Yeah, I pulled one Genesis out of a retail, out of a blaster, and I was a Aaron Donald. Howie Long, Donovan McNabb. We get a DeAndre Swift debut rookie, and an old school Eli Manning green. Dan Marino, Stephon Diggs, T.Y. Hilton, and I think we might have a rookie. Nope. Lawrence Taylor in the mosaic. Nick Bosa, Sony Michel. We get a LaMichael Pirine rookie. And a touchdown masters, Patrick Mahomes. I like these inserts. They're really fun. All right. Ryan Tannehill, AJ Green, Chris Jones, and a green Nick Chubb. Two packs left. Darius Slayton, Richard Sherman, John Elway Hall of Fame, and Got Game, Michael Thomas. Last pack. Randy Moss, Roger Staubach, Marquise Brown, and an Aaron Donald green. I've pulled like 3 green Aaron Donalds. He's thick in this product. So that was one blaster box of Mosaic Football, highlighted by the orange fluorescent Devontae Parker, numbered out of 25. Get that sleeve real quick. I do like Mosaic, and that's one of the reasons why I bought a case of blasters a while back. And it's just, I'm literally just sitting on the product. I opened a little bit out of it, but I bought it as a stash till next year, because I believe that Mosaic is going to go up quite a bit, especially with it being the first year of its release. So, absolutely believe this is going to continue to climb. Get this stuff out of the way. All right, so here we go with 2020 Panini Prism Football Mega Box Fanatics exclusive. You get 1 autograph per box. You get 3 purple pulsars per box, which are the exclusive to the Fanatics product. Does Collector's Corner have supplies? Last I was in there, they had quite a bit. Yes, I haven't been up there since last week. But normally, yes, they've usually got quite a bit of supplies. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But he does keep pretty heavy amount of supplies when he's got them. Thank you, Zeus. So I've already pulled my Chase Claypool auto from this product. So now it's a question of what do I chase next. Here's the base cards for Prism if you have not seen them yet, which I'm assuming most of you have. Tre'Davious White, Roquan Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jeff Okudah, yeah, last time I was at Brian's, he was pretty cleaned out too. That was a couple weeks ago. Keenan Allen, Marshawn Lattimore, and we get a C.J. Henderson for our first purple pulsar. So this is the purple pulsars that are the Fanatics exclusive. The C.J. Henderson rookie, followed by Cole Kmet rookie. C.J. Mosley, Alshon Jeffrey, Kenny Clark, and a Jonathan Taylor rookie. Joe Mixon, Kenny Golladay. We get a Justin Jefferson Emergent rookie insert, followed by Jordan Love. Whoops, just bumped my camera. Jordan Love base rookie. Not too bad start. Leighton Vander Esch, Darnell Savage, and we have a silver coming up. Oh, let's see if it's anything good. Joey Bosa. I saw the Chargers colors and was getting wishful thinking. And a Tyler Johnson base rookie. Joey Bosa silver. We got Noah Fant, Kenyon Drake, and our next purple pulsar goes Calvin Ridley. And our last card for that pack, Terrell Lewis, rookie. Ben Roethlisberger, Kwan Short. We get a Fireworks, Lambjack. And then a Michael Ojemudia rookie card. Chris Jones, Patrick Peterson, and A.J. Brown purple pulsar. And a Darrell Taylor base rookie for the Seahawks. Still looking for that auto. And here it comes. We're going to wait. Carson Wentz. Trayvon Diggs base rookie. So the auto's right there. Peyton Manning, Ryan Kerrigan, Matt Ryan, and a Marlon Davis base rookie in the last pack. All right, here comes our auto. Actually, I'm going to do it with this hand since it's a veteran card. Oh, Neville Gallimore. He had the right team. Zeus called out C.D. Lamb. Had the right team. Dallas Cowboys. Neville Gallimore. Defensive tackle. So that was our one box of 2020 Prism Football Fanatics exclusive. That was kind of brutal. The last half of the box was brutal. Yeah, I feel you, Taylor. Yeah, the end of that was... The box started off good in the first 4 packs. The Jonathan Taylor, the Jordan Love, the Justin Jefferson. That was a decent start to it. Like I thought it was showing promise, and then all of a sudden it just went downhill quick. That went downhill really quick. Move this up a little bit. Really, really, really quick. Alright, so I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do for... These were 2 less than inspiring boxes. I mean, the mosaic wasn't bad. I mean, it pulled a Devontae Parker out of 25. So let me figure out what I got here. Okay, so I'm going to give away the A.J. Brown Purple Pulsar. And I'm going to give away the Aaron Donald Green Mosaic. Oh, right on. Ed's still breaking, Dave? I'm wondering... I know I follow him. He must not be very active on Twitter anymore. I don't ever see him post. Okay, that would be why I never see him post on Twitter. Excuse me. Alright, so these are going to be the 2 that we give away. I'll do the randomizer. This first spot wins the Aaron Donald. The second spot wins the A.J. Brown. Oh wow, we got hacked, huh? Dang, that sucks. Okay, so... whoever's in, just put me in the chat, and I'll start loading up the random list. All right. We got Fitch, we got Shane, we got Taylor, we got King of Rock, we got David Miller. Anybody else on that wants in? Zeus, are you still in? Wasn't sure if Angel was still on. Saw him on earlier. Saw a few more guys earlier. Steve. take you off. I see how it is, Dave. Oh, god dang it. I hate when it does that. Hold on. I gotta restart it. Hate when it does that. Give me a second, guys. I don't know why it does that when I hit delete. It's weird. Anyway. Alright, anybody else on? Dave, Shane, Taylor, King of Rock, Steve. Like I said, we had a bunch of guys that jumped out right before we broke. Well, I'll run over to the dice roller real quick. We'll do that anyways. Alright, so this is the amount of times we're going to randomize the list. 5 times. We're going to randomize the list 5 times. Give anybody else a second that's on. If you want in, just type me in the chat. A couple more seconds and we'll roll. Alright. We're going to get going then. Last call. You guys saw the list, or saw the dice. We're going to roll the dice 5 times. First spot, when we get done randomizing, is going to win the Aaron Donald. Second spot's going to win the A.J. Brown. And let's go. Good luck, everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th and final time, Steve winning the Aaron Donald, and King of Rock winning the A.J. Brown. Congratulations. There you go. All right, so before we shut down, let's see what's coming out. We've got Elite Extra Baseball came out today. We've got Leaf Metal Baseball. Leaf Metal Draft Baseball comes out Friday. Next week we have some stuff coming out as well, but it's Wednesday release, so I won't have anything new for the show Tuesday, so I'll have to go pick up some stuff Tuesday. Maybe I'll see if I can pick up a basketball product. Ooh, you know what? I bet you I can pick up a box of draft basketball, Prism Draft basketball. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight, and we got playoff football this weekend, so have fun with that. Good luck to everybody's teams that's playing this weekend. And if you guys see any retail that anybody's clearing out, let me know. I'm looking for Hoops Premium Basketball retail, Prism Football retail, really anything of the products as of late. I'll pick up in bulk if anybody finds any. If anybody has a friend that's selling any, wants to get rid of it, have them tag me. And again, as I've mentioned to some of you guys, if you have any friends that are that make music at all, that are in a band or anything, and they're not signed to a label, have them reach out to me. Send me some music samples because I want to be able to import music onto the show. If you know anybody that does videography of any sort or a production manager of any sort, have them reach out to me. I'm looking for a production manager for the show for this year. If you know anybody that does anything like that, have them get in touch with me. Looking for a lot of different things for the show coming up this year. So, Happy New Year to everybody, and I hope that 2021 is a blast for you guys. Don't forget, website goes live this Friday. So if you missed last week's show or you forgot, the website goes live on Friday. We're going to have a lot of single cards listed on there. I will hopefully be getting some boxes listed on there as well before they go live. There's going to be a lot of Funko Pops on there. There's going to be show access on there. Eventually the podcast is going to be right on there. There's going to be a lot of stuff. That website's going to go big. So make sure you're spreading that around. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of it. I want to be everybody's source at some point, kind of a local card shop, but online. So anyway, everybody have a good rest of your week, and I will see you guys here next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Have a good week, everybody.